Rastafari greetings once again. You welcome each one to tonight's reasoning. This is another edition of the Rastafari reasoning brought by the Education Commission of the Rastafari Council, Ghana. The Rastafari reasoning is a bi-weekly reasoning that aims to focus attention on His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie as a conceptual locus to seal the ideological gaps that negatively impact cohesion and meaningful cooperation, to help formulate a relevant epistemology for the African world, to cultivate a culture of learning that truly unleashes our collective creative potential. The purpose of tonight's reasoning, as always, is to discuss, to consult, and act together in focused exchange of ideas, thoughts, views, knowledge, to comment on specific problems, and air considered views on courses of action to best follow in dealing with the world, to come to terms with history, politics, economics, education, etc. So we don't repeat past errors, and instead of always to catch up with the world, this reasoning seeks to stimulate creative thinking. Our presenter for tonight is Ras, Seven Fireside, Kwesi Anoche, and he's presenting on the topic Across the Finish Line, Ganja legalization, current and implications. So our listeners on the radio culture and participants here, I will invite Ras Anoche to take the floor and lead the presentation. Give thanks. Ras, please, we can't hear you.
Yes, thank you for making this happen. Am I coming through? Can you hear me now?
Yes, please.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for sending this up. Thank you, Jah Beloved, for carrying this inspiration. Matter of fact, you helped me, both you and Roscoe, you have helped me think through some of these things I'm discussing today. Yeah, so I'm starting from the place where around 2020, they said there was some in Ghana, there was some reforms as far as what they call the cannabis law, right? They said now it was legal to, apply for a license or have a license and, engage in industrial or medicinal production or research or whatever. In contrast to the time before where it was like nothing about ganja was being allowed. But we have a problem with that in that what Rastafari has been fighting for is not necessarily industrial use or medicinal use as a fragmented aspect of, just leaving the ganja alone, let people be able to smoke their ganja, use their ganja, drink it, eat it, whatever, without being arrested or bothered in any way. And alongside with that, we want the ganja prisoners to be free, throughout our lives. In all of our lifetimes that people have been going in and out of prison. Some of them have been there for years. Some of them were just recently arrested. And these are some of the concerns. So when we come in as Rastafari people, we're trying to speak like Selassie, right? Selassie intervenes. He doesn't say, oh, this is how it is, so I'm going to cope with it. He goes in and he says, this is the situation and this is what is good for people and this is what we want. So that's the language we're supposed to be speaking as Rasta people. They've given us some language which is not working for us when they start talking recreational, industrial, medicinal, and all that. So yeah, basically that reform, that bill, so to speak, still prohibited what they call recreational use. They call what we do recreational or sacramental. All of them are problematic terms. We're supposed to be happy because they said, there'll be no custodial sentences, right? We've heard about that too. Ghana should be happy with joining Malawi, Lesotho, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Rwanda. For a while back, South Africa was in the same situation, but they realized that it was inadequate for the reality. So they pushed harder. and they went past this whole decriminalization and this medicinal That's one area that's not necessarily affect the majority of our people. The most of our people who are concerned about ganja are interested in leave it alone so we can smoke this thing and don't bother us. That's it, and then stop arresting people basically and set the prisoners free. So yesterday I was vibing with my brother, Rastaman, Kex. He's telling me that just this year, cops have busted into his house and arrested him. And he talks about this happening, not just that. It's not just that one incident. It's been happening, and when the cops are done with him, they moved on to another place, which contradicts this whole thing about, Rasta shouldn't worry about it. Things have changed. Some people are actually celebrating that things are okay for them, but things are not, because even if they don't they don't lock you up and all that, they extort you. You have to give them something. And a lot of people can't afford to give anything. But in the first place, there should be nothing like that. Another brother of mine, he was. Let's say the reform happened in 2020. My brother was in his room. Cops came in, took him away, locked him up for a while. In 2023, that was like 3 years later, and he's still going to court, because of that. So yeah, it's a problem. So they can talk about the industrial and medicinal thing. It doesn't really work. It doesn't bring any relief to us. Most of us who actually started pushing for the freeing of the ganja, so to speak. Okay, so we know about the implementation too has had a few problems, right? They talk about Supreme Court told them to go back because they skipped some procedures. But they say they're working on it. The Supreme Court, they have a problem with the substance of it. They were just concerned about the procedure, the steps they missed. And then there are problems with facilities and all that. All these are things that are in another category. Matter of fact, it was interesting when I read an article that was saying Ghana's reforms, the legislation is one of the most confusing cannabis legislations. A journalist from outside Ghana who was reading the scene, and what I think is confusing about is that Rasta's purpose was somehow co-opted through certain alliances we got into, where voices that were pushing for the industrial hemp thing kind of drowned out the voice of leave the ganja alone for us to use. And I think it's time for Rasta to cut those alliances off and get this through. Or if we're going to work with them, make sure that they're working around what we're looking for. Here, I'm going to salute the RCG for what it's been doing, prior to the reform and since. We've heard of a lot of things. You got the police to come up with policy where they would stop targeting Rasta people on paper. We know about Kex from way back, pushing petitions. And he went to the ministries, they told him to go to parliament. And then when the RCG kicked off, he continued, he and the advocacy commission, we can talk about works he's done with other people, including Kofi Asante, who was very upfront about defending the ganja. Sometimes you hear some fuzzy positions, people wavering, but this man is unflinching right there. Kex, like I was saying, and a number of brothers and sisters. And they've held conferences, events, live events and all that. So basically, we salute all that and all the people who've defended Africa's gates in terms of ganja and everything, serious respect, Now, the situation is we are in a place where we're still not okay. Rasta is being profiled still. The couple say Rasta not Atihase, so make we go there. And they will go there, just go make things difficult for Rasta, When they may not do it in the open, they may do it in the open too. They might say, we thought you were a dealer, right? So, but let's think about Ghana for a second. A lot of times we forget about our position in the world when it comes to ganja. Let's remember that in 2016, the United Nations report that they released on the usage of ganja in the world set Ghana. Of course, they're not going to get everybody. All these numbers are rough estimates. Sometimes they're way off. I always want to say that they're talking to fewer people, or they're getting more data from fewer people than they always report. But in Ghana, they noticed this, that they said 21% of the population are using ganja, right? That's 2016. Number one in Africa, that's Ghana, right? 2016. Number three in the world. Now, 2 years before that, they actually said Ghana was number one in the world. Check that out, right? In that sense, we have a responsibility to take initiatives. We shouldn't say, oh, this is what people are doing, so we have to follow. Or no, look at the name Ganja and Ghana self, they rhyme, but that's an aside. But speaking to the point, Ganja in Ghana is, some of us will argue, a traditional culture. Matter of fact, an aspect of Ghanaian traditional culture. In 2020, they said there was more than a 10% increase in terms of users from the previous year, that was 2019. So the numbers are going up. They said 21 over here. We know that it's way above it. This is 21 in 2016. Now let's put this in perspective. Israel, 27% of the population are reporting that they use ganja, right? Look at Ghana's 21% and rising, right? South Africa is between 15 and 20, right? That's what the numbers say. In Jamaica, it's between 18 and 20, right? United States, 17 and 20. Nigeria, we'll give them 10 and 20. And look at where Ghana stands. So we can't be looking over our shoulders and saying, well, this is what the world is doing, so we're going to follow. We have to take initiative, bold initiatives, Jah Beloved had an interview with Ghana's expert on narcotics at the United Nations. The man, they talk some things will be very interesting. He even admits it to Ozafi have more THC. See how they like to talk about THC content and all those abstract notions, in my view, but it was a cordial discussion. Jah Beloved wasn't sparing him. Jah Beloved was pushing the angle of Rastafari, like, just leave it alone, make people smoke. Why say, make it okay for people to smoke? And he was very, he handled everything quite well. But one thing that stood out was that he was concerned about, Ghana being a conservative society, right? And we shouldn't forget that everywhere that has been legalized, there are conservative forces who fought against the legalization. California, Holland, it's not even legal in Holland at this point, but let's talk about South Africa. There were serious forces who didn't want it to happen. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So he was concerned about the conservative society of Ghana, and he was concerned about our obligations to international treaties, right? We have to honor the UN Treaty on Narcotic Drugs, right? Okay. And then he said something very curious. He says, we're doing what everybody is saying, right? But what everybody is saying, I think the conversation was in 2023. What everybody was saying around that time was legalize it, right? When I say legalize it, I know there's a connotation or an understanding of legalizing, which comes with, now big corporations can come in, the brethren was saying corporate capture, right? And so people will be like, oh no, legalizing, no, let's just decriminalize it. But when they decriminalize it, it's still illegal, right? And the places where they've decriminalized, it's used for medicinal and industrial purposes. But you have when you say, okay, you don't want big corporations to come in. If you're seriously going to do this medicinal thing, big corporations have to come in. Rwanda is just like any other African country besides South Africa. They say, hey, just medicinal and industrial, right? Big companies are coming in. A U.S. company is coming in to make it happen. Ghana's thing is not taking off for the most part. At this point, it looks like we don't have facilities, we don't have financing. It will mean people with money will have to come in, right? So this whole thing about corporate capture and all that, I think it's another discussion that shouldn't push us to the point and say, oh, legalize it. No, legalize it. We're using the term legalize it, for want of a better term, in terms of leave rest of people alone. Leave people alone, matter of fact. Some of us are more concerned about the people, be able to handle their herb, move around with some herb, use the herb, and not be bothered. That's what the world is saying. you look in Europe, you look in the United States, South America, that's the direction of things. Those are the currents that are blowing. 2021, something interesting happened. Washington in the United States, Washington State and Colorado went ahead and legalized its what they call recreational use, right? And then immediately Uruguay, out of nowhere, legalized it. First country to say, hey, to hell with all these things, we've legalized it. And you know what? A U.S. diplomat that was working in that area, someone who's, responsible for making sure that U.S. kind of sanctions and all these things were kind of like hung over people's heads so they wouldn't do certain things. He said Uruguay's move timing was perfect because he realized that, it was obvious that once people started legalizing America, now America couldn't be the top cop. So America couldn't do anything. And Uruguay had legalized it. These are cues to Africa that we do not have to listen to some of these things. We have to make moves. And so Uruguay did in 2013. I want to think more about the Black world. I've been talking about, other places, but let's think of the Black world. If we're looking outside the continent, we're going to talk about South Africa, but let's look at the Black Caribbean. Many of them have decriminalized it, right? Trying to honor the international treaty, kind of agree obligations, right? To say it's legal means, you're going up against all that, right? And that's why I'm saying some of us should be able to be courageous to venture in that direction because Uruguay has done it. And I don't see Uruguay as a Black nation. Besides, the laws were made primarily because of Black people. Someone like Chris Duval has written an interesting book, The African Roots of Marijuana, some very good book. I'm sure some of us have read it. And he makes a very cogent argument throughout about how it was because of Africa that ganja prohibition became a global thing, So let's look at Black Caribbean. They're decriminalizing it. And something very interesting is happening over there because Rasta presence and all that. Some of them, like St. Vincent, Jamaica, some places, they've legalized it for Rasta's sacramental use. Very vacuous language, hollow language. What do you mean sacramental use? So it means if Rasta decides that he wants to use for something other than what you call sacramental. First place, Africans, traditionally, we don't separate the God relationship or the spirituality from the secular. We do not necessarily. We can function with certain, there's a points of focus. It's like we're actually focusing on engaging with the Most High, but God and state and all, separating God and state and all these kinds of things are all European ideas. We put it all together to get to understand things. Your friend on me anytime, right? Slashy to speak. People they say they call Jesus a lot. They call God. They talk about God a lot. Yeah, that'd be the thing. That'd be how Africans speak. You're saying, So it's a ridiculous thing to say Rasta's sacramental use, right? And then comes with all the things about what about brother where you say, be Rasta. You took for suffer, we feel okay. Yeah, but we'll get to that in a second. Some very interesting the Trinidadian or the narcotics policy head of Trinidad. Right. He said, ganja wouldn't be a problem had it not been for international pressure. Right. So he's saying this thing doesn't make sense. It's just pressure from outside that's making us do this thing. Right. In Trinidad. Right. So these are things we have to bear in mind when we hear other people say, oh, yeah, we have to obey these rules and all that. And, the rules don't make sense. What you going to do? And actually, we can go about this problem without necessarily being like, oh, we are just some troublemakers. Already we have precedent, right? Uruguay, Canada, right? Canada is part of the white world, the people that actually brought this law against the world, right? I'm going to go through a few things and we will, maybe shed some light on some of the implications of some of these things. So white power world brought this law as a war on Black people, on the Black world. Basically, let's agree to that. In South Africa, they had I'm sorry, I may not pronounce the word right, Daca. They say Daga, right? It reads Daga, but I'm sure they say Daca or something, right? I know Prof. Imhotep South Africa, anyone from South Africa who see it can pronounce it better than me. Okay.
Yes, Daga. That's okay. Right. You
Daga. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. The Daga party is a white-led party for the most part, right? The leader of the party, when it was, South Africa went through two different stages. First, they decriminalized its use, right? And people were not satisfied, so they pushed. And then 2024, they had it legalized finally, right? Because still the cops had a reason to harass people, mostly black people. So this white guy, he called it one of the last apartheid laws. That's what he called the Ganja law, and he was pushing for freeing the Ganja. Rasta people have always been pushing it, but maybe Rasta people are visible, but Rasta people are not legible in discourse, right? No matter how much we praise ourselves for being recognized and all that, we're speaking a totally different language. Some of us are tempted to fold into the regular discourse, but we're not supposed to. We come in the name of Selassie. We're speaking another range, different parameters. So we're not that audible, in discourse, But these white guys were at the forefront of this fight, So we had the Daga Party. We had the Daga couple, like a lobbyist kind of joint, a husband and wife, white people. There's this Italian South African too. These are the people that when you research the process of legalization in South Africa, they will come up as prominent figures. But we know Rastafari people and other indigenous people who necessarily don't identify as Rastafari, who have been using this thing way before white people came there. We're the ones pushing this thing. Okay, a point being made here is that these white people sort of see, like, some of them actually argue that it's a form of like reparative justice, because they realize, like how the leader of the Daga Party said, it is one of the last apartheid laws, right? Apartheid means black versus white on top of us. It's a global law, right? And we're sitting in Ghana and we're trying to look at this law like, oh yeah, we don't want to be the ones that, no. We're the ones that's supposed to be talking about what this white guy said, that this is a white power law. So to hell with it, South Africa went ahead. Okay, so let's go back to the tensions in South Africa. The government was not budging, really. It was very reluctant. All these things, I would more or less say, generally they did it grudgingly. I'm talking about government in terms of a body. I'm sure there were individuals in there who would be like, let's legalize it already. But as a body who wants to be seen as a respectable organization of a nation state, the obligations and all that and all that. Yeah, they were playing it kind of funny, because the government was like, oh, public health and safety considerations make it hard for them to legalize it, right? Same arguments we hear in Ghana, Nigeria, other places. Public health is driving people crazy. It will make people criminals, right? But the Constitutional Court in South Africa was a step ahead of that, and so it was unconstitutional to prohibit ganja use and possession. Interestingly, when you think about it that way, you start to realize that there are always individuals who may be part of the government, may be part of it. Actually, in Ghana, there are people in parliament who are blazing. We know that. There are people, judges, who are blazing. I'm very sure. I don't know them, but I'm very sure. Let's put it here like I'm speculating. But across the board, people are blazing. They're using it, or at least they don't have a problem with ganja legalization or ganja being freed, right? So these voices start showing up. When we create the right environment, that's why Rasta shouldn't be backing off and start using other people's language, like we fight for recreational and sacramental. No, let's say what we want to say as Selassie people, Okay, so there was strong opposition from an alliance of government ministries, right? And anti-cannabis interests too. But Rasta people stood up in South Africa, didn't let anybody's voice drown out there. They drowned out the other voices. And the people of South Africa, the white people I would say they joined the black people in doing this, because black people have always said no to this. Interestingly, the reason why we have to do this thing consistently and not say this is not yet the right time, we're waiting for I don't even agree with this, let's wait for the government to settle in and all that. No, we should be just what we do constantly until our people don't have to worry about being arrested and people are released from prison. So the government was reluctant, right? But it was a day before their elections in 2024 that, what's the president's name? I forgot his name, of South Africa. That's when he signed the thing, the day before. Now we could speculate as to what brought him there. I mean, what brought him there? But yeah, it was the day before, and it was almost like a break from what maybe the rest of his crew had officially agreed upon, or at least people who were in those positions were concerned about. This is how you have to run a nation state in the modern world. You want to conform and all that. I don't even want to believe that they say this when you're alone in your quiet moments. But yeah, so they've done this, and I don't think South Africa is suffering any punishment from the world, right? I doubt it. Let's bear in mind that in a month, February 2025, it would be 100 years since the first UN treaty, the single convention, no, the opium convention, opium, they built it around opium. It's a white guy who actually went to Europe and said, hey, in Africa, they have something, Africans have a kind of opium, and he was talking about ganja, right? So this guy's, we shouldn't even deal with your nomenclature. We shouldn't deal with your language, right? Just using English words, it doesn't mean you have to use the English concepts. Okay, so these people, they don't know what you're talking about, right? Duval makes that point. A lot of researchers make that point. White researchers make that point. White people couldn't comprehend what marijuana was, and they're coming up with all these deductions, and they're coming up with all these ideas just to dominate things. Who initiated this thing basically was, of course, in Africa, the different colonial governments, authorities were doing things, like illegalizing it in their little corners. But on the global stage, it was white South Africa back then, about 100 years ago. It's interesting, within a window of 100 years, they start this nonsense and it's all being canceled, right? This is we shouldn't think this is God Almighty made ganja illegal. But these people, where they do their colonial thing, where they started this foolishness, straight before I accept that. So yeah, South Africa, colonial Egypt, which was like thoroughly like regurgitating European ideas in that time when it came to ganja. If I want to say it was a British idea from Egypt, and then there was fascist Italy, Mussolini's government had just come in. These were the guys who say, hey, let's make ganja illegal and let's prohibit it, So why do we have to listen to forces like this and develop their language? And then they put this in there, it can only be allowed for scientific and medicinal purposes, whatever that means, right? And now, unfortunately, we're still playing that game where we're trying to say, it's for scientific purposes, it's for, now say industrial, right? It's for medicinal purposes. It's an old little joke that we're playing with us, right? They definitely said they were prohibiting personal reuse. If you look at Ghana's reforms in 2020, it's basically like it's like parroting those things. Oh yeah, we're doing industrial and medicinal, but we prohibit personal use. Neo-colonial concepts that don't suit us as a people. We should just shed those clothes and step forward. It's understandable. Sometimes you ask yourself, why do people even have to? Why does African or why do Black countries have to sign up to these treaties? Once we realize these things, why don't we just dip out? But it's understandable, nation state situations. But the idea of a nation state is highly problematic, and I think the world is moving more and more into a place where people are questioning the viability of that idea. But that's another conversation. Some of the benefits that you get from being a signatory, to these treaties is you get permission to do legitimate trade. Let's say if Ghana starts to produce medicinal marijuana, and they have to push things around to other countries, it wouldn't be a problem, And then they say helps fight criminal drug trafficking and all that. Okay, cool, but really, there are provisions that these treaties they've made. Okay, so 1925, they started this thing. In 1961, they did a single convention where they tried to kind of like, crystallize their ideas, pull it all together, and modify it a little bit. Something very interesting happened over there, though. As soon as they did that, they decided that, cannabis was a problem and it has to be prohibited. India stood up You know how they call ganja Indian hemp, because you've been seeing it there too, right? England, Britain was dealing with it over there. India stood up and said, no, we object. We don't agree. You can't be saying you're prohibiting ganja because they would call it, yeah, they call it ganja too over there, some, because it's something that our people have always dealt with. So right there, they modified it to say, okay, you don't have the right to send it to a country that has prohibited it. You see, right there, we Africans should take a cue again that, look, this thing is not cast in stone. It's not God that's talking, right? Okay, now they had other things, provisions in there, right? For instance, there's this possibility of any member state has a right. This got to do with all international treaties. Any member state, a signatory to the treaty, has a right to like table an amendment, say, hey, this part of the thing doesn't work for me, or it doesn't make sense. So let's modify, right? Okay. And then things going well, people would agree and they'll change it. If there's opposition, the other possibilities. That country, let's say in this case, Ghana could link up with Nigeria or Togo, right? Or, South Africa, any other black country, and say, between us, this is not a problem. And if it stands legit, these provisions are in there. And then there's another option to where you can back out and come back in. And Bolivia did that with their coca leaf thing. They've always been defending the coca leaf. So when Evo Morales was head of state of Bolivia, before him, another head of state had put this in front of the world body that, look, man, this criminalizing coca leaf use is a problem for us because this is a cultural thing. This is what we do, right? But they were, doing their playing their little games. But Evo Morales Evo Morales went all the way to the United Nations and pull out a coca leaf and show it to them while he's speaking to them, These are things we should be able to do, not for the drama or how spectacular it looks, but to speak another language, say what we really want to say. So Evo Morales this is what he did. He said, look, let's correct this part of this article. When he said that, people like England, Britain, Canada at that time, and other countries were like, no, I'm hearing some talk in the back. Can someone cut your mic a little bit? Yeah. Brethren, you go cut your mic. You go mute your mic. Can someone mute his mic? Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So what Bolivia did was, and they were allowed to do this, right? Because we were being stopped from, achieving your goal. You're allowed to get out of the treaty, right? Exit it, and then reapply with reservations, which means that before they got in, they could have just said, we're joining this, we're going to be part of this agreement, but we have reservations. Turns out people sign before they think about these things. But Bolivia got out and it came back with reservations, right? Which means that all the rights that accrue to a nation that does, that is part of the treaty are still, theirs to enjoy. Okay, so let's just think about a Black alliance now, a Pan-African alliance, whatever we want to call it. The problem is that the treaty is not reviewed. So some of these, if it were reviewed based on where things are going, I'm sure they would have tossed a lot of the things they're talking about, because the world is conversing differently about ganja right now, and actually generally about their idea of narcotics. In 1998, certain world bodies, I'll call them world bodies, but maybe they're like one organization called the Transnational Radical Party, and another one called the International Anti-Prohibitionist League to Reform United Nations Conventions, long name. Yeah, they were actually arguing that nations should denounce these treaties, right? Make nonsense of them. They denounced it and said that's the way forward. We have to denounce it, right? And that was 1998. 2008, the European Union Parliament, right, actually talked about how much damage it was doing, right? So people are kind of like negating any kind of justifications for this law, and then Canada, Uruguay, who are getting in trouble from the policing side of the United Nations. They went ahead and they stepped out of that. They wouldn't conform. They wouldn't comply with that tenet. So, and of course, something interesting happens when you don't conform. The UN has two different bodies, right? They have the police part, the what you call the law enforcement part, drug enforcement part, and then you have the human rights part. That's a clash right there, because the human rights part will say all these things we're saying. You're damaging society by pushing this anti cannabis law, and then the policing part is the one that will reach out to Canada and Uruguay and say, hey, you guys have stepped out of line, see what you do, right? But I think we know we have options now. We can talk about it some more, and I'll send this document for some of the documents that I have forward, so that they can be posted on the site, the RCG site, so some of us can look at it and maybe help us formulate ways forward. In the United States right now, they've also realized that they made a huge mistake, right? So Joe Biden is trying to actually has issued a directive that they should reschedule ganja from, they should have it in Schedule 1, which means it had no medicinal purpose, it was addictive, everything bad, right? Now, he didn't take it down to Schedule 2. He says he's taking it down to Schedule 3. Now, we don't care about all this because it doesn't really answer our problems. But at least it's an indicator that we don't have to listen to their language, their political language, their conceptual language. We don't have to. I would say their economic language, everything, their whole understanding of knowledge. We have to bypass that. We got our own thoughts to think. Our education hasn't helped us. It's made us beholden to their way of thinking. But we are getting things that are helping us forward, and we have to really appreciate those things. Okay, so I'm going to end by talking about one phenomenal situation that happened in Ghana in 1960, between 1963 and 1965. A group of people called Nyameneba in Princestown, I think around Takoradi. They were blazing the herbs. Nyameneba means they're linking with the Most High in their minds, in the way they're looking at it. They were blazing the herbs, and they were actually sort of like an activist organ, because they were actually speaking against cigarette use and alcohol use, and they were using the herb. They were blasting people who would smoke cigarettes and drink alcohol, and then they would heal people with the herbs. They would eat it. They would put in their food. They would drink, use it in soups and all that, right? And then they got arrested, right? And they went to court. They were arrested in 1963. They went to court and they defended the ganja. Now, they were telling them they had flouted the, what do you call it, Indian hemp law, basically, right? And these guys said, nah, man, we don't know what you call Indian hemp. We don't know. This thing is not Indian hemp. And I think Rasta has to learn from this. You see, when they say Indian hemp, some of us will go say Indian hemp, then we're trying to answer their question, because we're so educated. When they say cannabis and this is what it is, then we go take it and we try to elaborate on it, right? When they say any word they say, we take, recreational, sacramental, then we take it. We don't care about those words. What do we really want for ourselves, right? If we have to formulate words, language is a space where people create words. A lot of words we're using, people just on the fly came up with them, and now we're using them like God Almighty made these words. We can create languages. If it wasn't for the borders that it put on us, Africa would have probably had way more languages than we have now, because everywhere you move and you interact, situations cause you to create other ways of speaking, adding terminology and all that. So by standing there and you're saying, no, we don't recognize that word Indian hemp. We don't even know what you mean. This is not Indian hemp. This is the herbs of life. That's what they said, the herb of life. And they kept on saying that. They were locked up, and they appealed, and finally they came to the Supreme Court in 1965 in December. Justice Neil Maule, I think some of us know him, prominent mind in the judicial area, Supreme Court justice. Yeah, he set them free. And his argument was, these people, he used the language that would be familiar to them. So these people were ignorant of the term. At least they consistently showed that they were ignorant of the meaning of the word Indian hemp, right? Basically, he's saying that, look, man, he actually is a point where there's a thing like whatever that Indian hemp thing means, it doesn't apply to these people because they genuinely didn't know that. Now, Rasta people, deep down in our heart, we've never recognized this Indian hemp meaning. We're just parroting it. What is this that you have in your hand, Indian hemp? No. What do we want to call it? Yamaneba said we call it the herb of life. People have called it the herb of life in many different places, herbs of God, you know, and all that. In different places, people may probably never heard of Yamaneba all over the world. But we can call it what we want and what we know it is. You know, fella had his own way of calling it too, you know. We talk about, you know, 5 fingers of the plant and how it works with the 5 senses and all that. So we can come up with our own way of talking about things. Okay, we've come a long way since directly copying them, right? If we start talking about reform and all that, it's a good indicator that we don't necessarily want to copy them, but we're still following. And it's affecting us in a lot of other areas. But right now we're talking about ganja. The US said 1971 says war on drugs. Then we started parroting. That time the United Nations, can you believe it, actually believed that they could stop people from smoking ganja. You know, they actually thought they were going to do something and eradicate ganja use in the world. You know, you see, this is the naivety. You know, I'm not saying let's disrespect the world. But yeah, the African has the right to disrespect the world, honestly. The African has the right to ignore the world because it's because of Africa that the modern world became what it is. Yeah, on all levels. We can talk about that too. But yeah, let's deal with this guy. Let's stay on point. Can you imagine PNDC, right? We know about Jerry. Some of us associate him with Ganja and all that, right? It was a PNDC law in 1990 that said, hey, we're going to go harder, you know, good, harsher punishment for ganja use. I remember there times I got arrested in the 90s. I got slapped a lot, beat up a lot, you know? Yeah, you know, and I'm not alone. I don't want to compare myself to other people. People have gone through worse than me, you know? So, yeah, but that's not, I mean, not just 90s, right? We all know that it happened in the 80s, in the 70s, in the 2000s, and now I'm telling you things that happened in 2025. So I'm just trying to say that Ghana has been following some kind of logic coming from somewhere. PNDC, right? What we thought was, we know was something that was about the people, right? They came up with this thing. Matter of fact, the Daily Graphic of January 6th, 1990 actually had a headline that said 1990 would be the year of the war on weed, right? Well, they didn't succeed. It failed. The UN has recognized that the war on weed has failed. The war on drugs, the United States has realized that it doesn't make sense. You know, why do we have to follow those logics? You know, not just these little aspects, but the whole logic. The axis has shifted, you know, the currents that are blowing are very, very different, you know. So let's get past these. When it comes to the things about benefiting from industrial use and all that, we can get in there. But let's stick with our program. Let's stick with our concern, which is to make it, whether we're going to use a referendum, you know, by rallying people to get with us. Already a lot of people who don't identify as Rasta, some of them who don't even smoke ganja, who know that ganja you don't have to be arrested for ganja. They find it ridiculous. In Ghana, there are many people like that. Right? Of course, you go to other people be like, oh, you go to Ebon Tower, you go to hell and all that. We know where the colonial Christianity thing that fit to drive people. But yeah, most people, anyone who's studious, and a lot of people are educated in Ghana, at least they go to school, they read a lot, they use the internet, they're reading and they're realizing that it's not it's not a story at all. They're realizing that ganja is another situation. So we have to get past these words, these terms, you know, including that sacramental thing they talk about, because what you want us to have our sacramental rights, and then I don't hear no shouting too much after they say Rastas, you have the sacramental, then there's no more fight to legalize ganja. We go what we want. No, I know I'm standing on the shoulders of people who never held Selassie too. We are the free to get information and things to stand up and defend ganja. So I know, and also as Rasta, we should have to remember we are not Rasta for ourselves. We are Rasta for the people. If it be King Selassie, we follow. Look at Selassie life. Take off your finger rings and say this, and all his movable and immovable property is for Ethiopia. You know, giving out his inheritance to Ethiopia while he was running the country, his lands that he had inherited. It makes you say every Ethiopian go get land. Rasta is not Rasta for ourselves, Adrian. We are Rasta for the people, the most vulnerable people for base of politics around. And the most vulnerable person right now, there's not some place where the warriors say police go can't catch him. We're not going to take him. Now if we go pay, they for bail out. Now family for suffer. These be the concerns of Rasta. You know, enough will happen. If I'm okay, if police see me where salute me and say, hey, Rasta man, leave me alone, then I'm happy. I think I'm being a bit disingenuous here. I'm not for happy, you know, because he go leave me and then go hustle my brother away, you know, be Rasta, then I go stand and say, yeah, I've got Rasta man rights, I've got Sacramento. So I think that Sacramento thing, let's put it aside. Let's fight, make this stop arrest people. What did they do with Ganja? Because people, the push away, the small, sell the one, small road there, it provide an essential service. Essential. How many of us know walk up to the looking for the push away, you find out your body, oh, like, yeah, right? Like she said, we need the pusher. And a lot of pushers don't get a lot of money. Many of them, not all pushers, they have a lot of money. If somebody doesn't do it to survive, these are the people women they think of first when we start to speak up for the ganja. You know, thing I would say in closing is that we have come very close to the finish line. We've seen examples of people who've crossed that line. You know, so it is our responsibility, you know, to future generations, to each other, to our people, to take it across the finish line. Yes. So, yeah, brothers, sisters, make we talk. If any sisters stay here as well, make we talk now. Make we discuss. Yeah, what I mean, say, you know, I've paused on the reasoning. I'm interested in what people think. Make we talk about this topic a little bit now. Let's discuss. Make we share ideas. You know, the discussion is open now.
Yes, I. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to hear about this because I had an experience already in Ghana. When I'm been here for this time, I've come home, Sankufa. I'm home. I'm a Rasta man, and I'm looking to find like-minded Rastas, ones that really like for the people. So as a humanitarian and also as a Rasta man, I want to live amongst my brothers, the like-minded ones that are doing the will of God. I come home for a purpose. St. Kufa has brought me home because I want to be amongst Ghana, amongst the Rastas here, so I can do what I come to do. I have a project which is out there called Go Green. And of course, the ganja is included. But I had a bad experience in Akuma village with the Arab and with the police and with the so-called people around me. And they took plenty money off me. And I didn't like it because I got it and I thought I was safe amongst the ones that looked like me and they called me the brothers. But in reality, I felt set up, I felt hurt, and the police took plenty money off me and then told me to get out of the car. They just knew I came from outside, and all they wanted to do is chop me. And once they chop me, I can go back there and do whatever I like because I and I didn't like that. It was very painful to endure. You know, this was a place that I came in 2000. I was in her, my Papa job, and different Rastas were around. You know, I'm not a stranger from her. Most Rastas know who I am. But still, when it comes down to unity, I'm her by myself as a Rasta man. Because every time I get close to certain different um, people of different organizations of Rasta, it's like I'm not accepted. And it really pains me because I come home to be amongst my brothers, to live up Rasta life, to help. You know, I didn't come to sit down. I come to be a part of the community to make Ghana a better place, a cleaner place. And all I want is my voice to be heard amongst the ones that say to our brothers, keep up. The ones that really love me and don't want to use me. Because I had bad experiences. before, and now karma still have, you know. And being a part of this is really making me very happy to be here. And I just want to know that we can maintain a relationship, that I don't have to wait to Zoom meetings like this, that I can see once and once in Ghana, and we talk about how we can make Ghana a better place for all, not just a few, but all. Thank you for listening to my voice. Respect. But please, can you give the guy a call? You know, got my details to connect so we can get to know each other better.
Can I say something real quick, Bridget?
Yeah, you can.
Bridget, first of all, let me extend apologies to the eye, on behalf of everyone of I and the whole entire Ghanaian community. I want to extend the apology. I'm very touched by this. And it's one thing for I to have to deal with this type of thing. But when it has to happen to brethren and sisters that we are extending a hand to come home, it's another thing to me personally. And let's even take it outside INI reasoning and bring it to their own portal, right? Because we're talking about promoting tourism, this, that, and the next thing. Now you're going to meet people who don't come from Ghana, and all of a sudden the legendary Ghanaian hospitality is gone. I went to Ghana about 2 years ago, and this is why I decided to speak right after you speak, just to reinforce what you're saying, Bridget. Because it's a sick society over there when it comes to marijuana, ganja, and we need to address that. I was in Ghana visiting after many years of being away. Now, I'm in a taxi with some other brethren. The police just see me, and all of a sudden they mounted a barricade, right? All cars pulling through. All of a sudden, just the sight of the Rasta man is enough to pull over that car that I am in. Now, after pulling over that car, my brother is in the car. The taxi driver is in the car. My producer is in the car. None of these brethren matter to him. He comes straight to me. You come out of the car. I'm like, for what? Basically the profiling straight away like that. Now the man gets me out, frisk me down, do everything what he wants to do, to the extent where the bottle of juice that I was holding, he was pouring it out and smelling it. I'm like, what are you trying to smell? This is the level of humiliation. And at the same time, this guy, first of all, thought I was not Ghanaian. Mark that. So if you're trying to invite tourists, let's take it to your level, government level. You're trying to raise tourism revenue, whatnot, right? And then because of that, you're saying, yeah, you want people, brethren and sisters, to come, or other people to come over there. And then when they come over there, this is how you're going to treat them. Forget it, because nobody is going to give you their tourism money when you're disrespecting them like that. It's not good publicity for the country on that level. Let's put that aside. Human rights level. Why do I have to be pulled out of a car and frisked down just because of how I look or whatever it is that made this policeman, and after not finding anything that he wanted to find, it's like a different story altogether. This is what we are fighting, right? I'll say other things, but I just wanted to come in and reinforce what you are saying, Bridget. It is something that we have to talk about. It is something that we have to talk about. And let me once more apologize to the eye for having to go through that kind of nonsense. Because nobody, least of all a Rasta man with a clean heart who wants to just reconnect with his roots, have to go through that. With all the year of return and all the nonsense that they keep talking about. Enough respect. Give thanks.
Give thanks, brother. Give thanks.
Hey, I experienced the same shit. You can imagine me with my family and my kids, then them pull me out, searching me head to toe, losing my spare tire and stuff. Rasta must address this. It's terrible here in Ghana. I share your pain, Ken.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there anything someone wants to say in addition? I just think that we will also be careful not to think, say, if we deal with this particular issue, then it will go away in another area. We will attack the specific issues, but we also think about the way we think we understand the world safe. Ghana, yeah, nice and wonderful, but Ghana is a colonial, neo-colonial creation, right? It's a colonial creation, matter of fact, right? Many things that happen for Ghana are framed within this colonial logic, So if we're happy to welcome our brothers and everything home, but we're in a fight. In Africa, we're fighting for our liberation still. We're not out of the woods. We're not okay, but we keep celebrating that, oh yeah, first country to get our independence, this and that. But we're not, a lot of times we're not even using our own ideas, as this discussion is showing, So we have to be more interested in what would we say, what would we do if these people didn't bring their ideas our way, because these problems will happen again. It hurts when you hear a brother coming from outside of Ghana, come selling Ghana, go through this. It hurts also when I hear Ross Ejo says he goes through this, that Jah Beloved had to go through this. And then yesterday, Kex, they tell me about things he had to go through just years, I'm talking to my brethren, Nana Kwame. He has to deal with certain things too, across the board, Rastaman can't say certain things because you feel like if you go say something, push someone too much, if you go call police, make police come search you and find ganja, I don't think it's a problem of the Ghanaian. It's a problem of the colonial orientation, our education and all that, So when ganja is legalized or when will stop arresting us, we're still not okay. There's so many areas. We have to really scrap the way we see the world. And that's what, if we say we want to train the youth to be different, we need a new world, youth training and all. We have to allow them to come up with ideas that are really what they think, that have maybe very little to do with how the world is right now, the world that Europe has created, because that's what we're dealing with. And those logics are what are sort of like framing most of the things we do, So yeah, just saying that it's a wider war where we define.
Yeah. Respect and greetings to each and everyone on the platform. Yeah, Master Kwesi, enough love and respect, And we love the reasoning, If if you can see from my screen, you realize I'm blazing some herb, And in Ghana here, you can be at home and talk to your pusher to bring you a herb, and he will come and drop it at home. And if most of the time when you are smoking at home, police don't disturb you, unless maybe you are also some kind of nuisance in your home or in the neighborhood, before maybe sometimes somebody will go and report you. And you should know for sure that when the policeman them come, they'll come and look for the ganja in your room. So you have to just hide certain things. What I want to say is that, some of the pushers, in Ghana here, things are not regularized. We don't take taxes from the pusher. So the pusher sometimes have to get the links around, which is the police that are close to us or even the headquarters. And from time to time, go there to go and see them, to sort them out so that we, the smokers, can also feel free and burn the herb, And you did say something that, yeah, man, if we want to fight for legalization, we shouldn't fight for only for the Rasta man. We should fight it for all. But I feel like, in terms of recreational and in terms of spirituality, Rastafari is a different level. And some man them use the herb and they just blaze it and they feel, they say when you smoke it, you are hot and you do things in a way that is not pleasant. But some of us who are Rastafari, we know we take this thing for meditation and, to relax our nerves and, to boost our system. So these fights that we are fighting, we can fight it. Some man them say you will fight it and it is going to be legalized. And those who are not part of the fight, who have the capital, and they will rather go into it and make enough money. So where will be our limitations, or what will be our level in terms of help? We feel still Rastafari should be on a level that when you are not part of the movement, you shouldn't be. For instance, if the herb can, reduce pain and enough things in your whatever, so that you can have a doctor friend, and the doctor friend will give a prescription that you can use the herb. And when the policeman catch you, you can present that to him that you used it and the doctor diagnosed or whatever, and he realized that it is good for you. And you can show that also to set yourself free. So, ganja is still free to a certain level if you want to smoke it and have the freedom. But the fight that we are fighting, are we going to fight it for everybody? I feel like it should be limited. Rastafari, when you are not part of the movement, just go and burn your other things. Give thanks.
Where's Ringo? Man, you make some very good points, but I want to maybe throw a little bit of something in there. You did it? Yeah, see, you said something like the police, they harass only the people where they create a nuisance, right? Right, but if you tell me, say someone like Kexpongo, they create a nuisance. But Kexpongo said they came up on him, not once, right? I started by talking about Nana Kwame, Rastaman. They come up on him too. You see, so
don't even come to your house. They meet you on the road. People they drive along, but Rasta Jane, they come drive along, they go stop you.
You see now?
You out. So it be different from my home because you never go see me for time where they carry ganja.
You see now? Now that they bother you.
My corner here, I take my bag, I can roll them, I put for my office. Cool.
You do your thing.
Come here, can fuck me up. But I did then they pull me out.
They drop
1 hour they go Accra. Me alone, I the driver for take 3 hours because every coach for stop me. Okay, that be reality.
As for the catching, it be true. Me myself, I did throw inside where they stop us. They come search me. When I tell the policeman, say, Charlie, I get ganja for my body. They take go outside. We just know it take me go put for their car inside where they handcuff me. Later they go put me for cells. I have to call some people and pay some money before they leave me. So as for the catching there, it be normal because it is not legalized. But
that is the problem.
We are blazing 247,
Yeah, but I get your point, but you were able to pay your bail. You were able to get some people. There'll be people where they don't get people to come bail them. So they go there inside, right? So I want to still get back to the point where they say, we know for defend only Rasta. First of all, remember, before Rasta started to defend ganja, other people to defend ganja for us, right? Rasta has borne the brunt, I agree. I know we're exhausted and any little relief we go take. But the truth be said, Charlie, the masses of the people that suffer with us, right? Now, I don't think, say, if we put it in historical perspective, I think of what we do right now, like I said, we fight we fight in a war of liberation, more or less, right? It is. Think about all the freedom fighting forces on the continent of our Mau Mau, like that. You think, say, they talk, say, oh yeah, we fight harder so you take care of us? No. Or if I get some privileges? No. And the whole idea of if you know be Rasta, then you should enjoy these privileges is moot, because there'll be people where maybe they know be Rasta, but maybe they get things where they use the thing that they use for. In fact, there are a lot of people where they use ganja for meditation where they don't identify as Rasta, right? When you create a situation like now, you go get people to where they say maybe they don't even think about it, but just go say, oh yeah, I'm a Rasta just because I want to. Like one of the Caribbean countries, they say is legal for registered Rastas, right? So some Rastas go just register as a Rasta and bring an ID. To me, it's a problematic way of looking at it. And me, I know as a person, if I can't speak for you, I can't speak for others, but I would never think, I started to fight for ganja solo in the 90s. I did make moves, go see Minister of Culture, go in office so many times, you don't want to see me against it, right? I'm not alone. People have fought in all sorts of levels. We've been through struggles, right? And I know, say, all the time they do that, I'm aware that the people where they know to call on Selassie directly, they know people know to identify as Rasta, where did they defend ganja, right? I've seen people where they chant down Babylon, where they know to identify as Rasta, for Nima and things that they defend ganja, where they never should identify as Rasta. All those people I'll stand by that man than the one way they talk about industrial. You know what I mean? I did benefit from this brother here. I get inspiration and drive to push this fight than the one where they talk, say, yeah, and give me a doctor's license to go get my medicine and I'm happy. You know? Even the ganja, where we fight about make it free. So, brethren, there'll be a point of disagreement between me and you here, that the emphasis for day on the people, because we come from the people, Rasta. You know, wait till we get where we don't get from the people. Slushy be about the people, Rasta. This thing we they do, not be about what we think it be. It be slushy with the follow. It not be what you think says Rasta be. It not be what I think say Rasta be. Right? Highly slushy is Rastafari. Right? The camps, the mansions, all that are incidental to the fact that highly slushy is Rastafari. So make we focus on that. Make we don't lose track. And slushy, front, back, center, it's about the most vulnerable people. Many vulnerable people know they identify as Rastafari. So personally, I think we're losing sight of who we be when we say, oh yeah, make you look out for Rasta. For me, that's my position. Seriously. And like you, I've been arrested a lot. I've been beaten, slapped. How many scatters man no run from? You know, but I never go say it because of if be Rasta. Right, if you go in someone, you think say most of the people where they go be Rasta. You're lying if you think that, or in the jail. So me, I think Rasta as if this thing we do for me have any meaning, we not for make the mistake of thinking that, yeah, we're trying to defend the sacrament. This all these coinages, all these definitions of sacramental work, it's a white idea. We are holistic people. You know, we know to fragment things to understand them. We to put them together to understand, right? So personally, this is my position. You know, and I'm sure there are other people who feel the same way. Rasta is not Rasta for ourselves. No, for me, I will ignore anything any Rasta man says, which know they align with what they see in Selassie. And I encourage other Rastas to do that. We've come to that place, man. There's too many made up stuff, patting ourselves up that we're Rasta, we're this. All that don't mean a thing if it's not Selassie. I'm putting out there straight. It's only King Selassie. He be the Rasta man. And everything you do be about the most vulnerable people. He said we were with our people through war and peace. Yes. He never say, I'm looking for something for myself. Even in Ghana, we saw Kwame Nkrumah. Not get nothing for himself. Right?
Yes.
Now, why we go walk around say, yeah, you know, make it Rasta is not so special. You know, now we start church Rasta. Rasta is special because of the people. Africa, global. And the black is in a situation, a serious situation. Ghana is kind of cozy, man. South Africa, they're hot over there because they're living right in front of white people. So they experience it a certain way. Ghana, you see only black people, so you feel say, oh, it's not, we're okay, we got a nice country, nice weather, nice this, nice that. But the world sees us a certain way. Africa is the land of the slave, 21st century, still, in terms of their conceptual framework. I can say, oh, I'm free or whatever, but the way they treat Africa, how else would Africa be in this economic state? Why would they use European model? I don't want to go too much in that direction. What I'm saying is that Rasta cannot accept the fact that we're getting these cozies from a government, nation state government, and we're happy. No, we come in the name of King Selassie. That is the government we deal with. All right. So we don't deal with government in a government. We deal with government to government. Selassie's the king. The king. Yeah. So give thanks, brethren.
I think
man. So what I want
hand is up. So if we could let him come in before.
Just one my small one I want to say again is that right now it is true only Rasta can free up the people. And I'm saying that also those people also who are blazing the ganja, how can we get them involved in this fight? Because this fight is not it's not a joke fight. Give thanks.
Yeah, so we build alliances, right? But we're building an alliance with a force that was talking about industrial hemp, and then we all let them have their way or what. We build alliances with people who are hungry to free the ganja so people don't have to get arrested. Those are the people we build alliances. And if we look around, people say, oh, we're just trying to treat it like a public health issue too. They're allies, but we can't count on them. If we have to build alliances with people who are uneducated, I prefer that. We prefer people who are ready to speak rough, don't make sense in proper discourse. Those we can build alliances with that and force a referendum in Ghana. Collect these signatures. Talk about it like the people say this, right? Let's stop looking at the shine and the polish where people get. We have this organization with this name and all that. We see the road they lead us down. We just go with people where they're hungry to get this ganja, and there's a lot of people who will be happy today when they free the ganja. Those are the people for build alliances with, and then we can help us. If the state want to work with us, we can bring up these ideas about building alliances with other countries. We could rebel against these treaties because it's these treaties. Let's ignore these treaties, because if these treaties that create a problem, and the problem with the treaty is that it tries to make modifications, but they didn't put provisions in there to review them, right? So it's a problem, and it was made by white people who believed in white power, right, for their purposes. So we will make moves against that and not be playing inside their prison and saying, oh yeah, at least I got a nice little cell in the prison where they've stopped bothering me in my cell. I still smoke my ganja from my prison cell. The prison be what we want to break out of, brother. So that's how I like to see that thing, So let's build alliances, man. There are people who go stand with us. And some of them started fighting before maybe you and me. Those are the people. They may not be very visible, but those are the people for build alliances with,
Rastafari. Yes, we give thanks for that. I can see Prof. Imhotep's hand is up. So we invite
yes.
Prof to make a
thank you very much, brother, and give thanks Ras Anochi for such a very interesting topic and deep reasoning on the issues surrounding the herb. So the way I see it, I think you've really thrown a lot of deep issues here that we need to engage with. And from where I stand, I think we need more knowledge than anything else, because the system that we live in thrives purely on the ignorance of the people to push through most of the things that are currently going on. Even in South Africa, since 2018, when the Constitutional Court ruled that you can't really arrest anyone for possessing the herb, there are still quite a number of police people going around, seizing and molesting people. You hear it almost on a daily basis. A number of months ago, they went and burnt a 20-acre farm just very close by. This is illegal. And there are so many things that are going on for which we ourselves are also full participants of. And that is why I emphasize that, becoming knowledgeable and knowing the issues at stake, and the debates that we need to raise really forms a cornerstone of the legalization movement. The issue of whether we should be fighting this as Rastafari alone or for everybody is neither here nor there. This is, it's a plant. Basically, for some of us, it's just a herb like any other natural plant that people can use. In fact, we talk about cannabinoids, but if you go into our kitchen, you find several spices that have more cannabinoids than even cannabis. So the topic under discussion really has to come with us going back inside, using the tools that we have within ourselves and interrogating, the nature of the system that we live in. Even at the UN level, they have expunged some of the rules. Those people whose parliaments made the laws have taken them out. And I agree with you. In Ghana, when they started the legalization, it seems we elect very lazy people to represent us. They simply copied and pasted what was done elsewhere. That's not the country where those laws were, originated. So I think let's refocus the debate and look inside. Uh, let's also do some inner searching within ourselves. How have we related to the plant as Rastafari? Is it just about smoking and, no. For some of us, personally, I came to this plant not through the smoking route. And I've seen so many people that came to it not through smoking. In fact, when you look at the global distribution and use of cannabis, smoking is a minor part of it. And that's where the debate really has to start. If we can demonstrate beyond just smoking, and let's be honest, our relationship with this, our ancestors used this as a tool to access dimensions and realms that are not ordinarily available. But today we don't use that. In fact, to approach it back in the days when you talk about, Haile Selassie and the Rastafari movement back then, there is some kind of respect when you come close to this plant. So it's not just about lighting a joint and smoking it and blowing it away, but it's something that you really want to contemplate on and figure out. And this becomes a tool for that kind of exploration. And I think within this community, we must also ask ourselves whether this is the way in which we are using. Otherwise, then it opens the door for anyone who, gets hold of it. And let's also face it, that most of what they are peddling out there as ganja has nothing to do with ganja. There are a lot of plants that mimic it, look like it, and probably produce the same kind of effect. But what our ancestors were using for those journeys has actually been so diluted that it's very, very difficult to find the original herb these days. We did a lot of research here looking at the chemotypes in South Africa, and it was extremely difficult to come out with a real plant that is what we were using. The plant itself exists in the 5th dimension, so it's almost impossible for any policeman, any governmental authority, or world body for that matter to prosecute it. So what they came up with is just a hybrid plant that is out there. And so we need to understand what the original plant and the basis of that original plant is, and we begin to make contact with it. If we can do that, then the next thing is, what is really it that we want to use it for? And we have several examples. You mentioned the case of coca in, in South America and other places. But also, if you look at the UDV church in Brazil, they use a hallucinogenic plant called ayahuasca. In the US, they started to, go after these people. They raised it in a court and they won the case. So they left them free. The Rastafari movement needs to make the case that this is our tool for exploring our consciousness. This is part of our journey. And what we deem as our communion actually is above the law that they are making in Parliament to come after. But we haven't probably sat down to look at these issues, and we link it and reduce it to just smoking, which I think is a very narrow way of looking at it. And then let's also look at the other side of it. What does it actually do to us when we ingest this plant? My personal journey has been that of an interest in indigenous plants, and cannabis happened to be one of them. But it's not the only one. When you check the list of plants and products that they have prohibited, cannabis is probably one of the most talked about, but there are quite a number. We have Iboga, which is a religious sacrament in Central and Southern Africa, and actually in West Africa as well. It's also under the same prohibition laws. We have ayahuasca, we have peyote, and so many other, and the mushrooms. These were all available tools. So we need to understand the nature of the game, that in order for this reality to go on, they have to put to sleep any tool or any avenue that will let you into the secret. Because when people get to know what the real game that is going on is, then it's game over. So in my conception, I don't see it as a fight per se, but as something for us to understand and transcend. Because if you have to fight with the system, probably we don't have the kind of money that you have to go and challenge some of these things. Even in passing that bill in Parliament, it took a lot of money to lobby different kinds of people to get to the stage in which we are. And these same lobbies get it through in the route of medicinal and industrial purposes. They price out the rest of the population. So when we came out with a paper and said that, let that go on, that's one aspect. But the other aspect is the people for whose life it has always been carved around the cannabis plant should have that right to continue. There are several communities, not just in Ghana, but across Africa. In South Africa, here in Pondoland, the people only know about cannabis. It's like going to Afghanistan. The major thing they know there is the poppy plant. You can't do anything about it. If you are in Malawi or Zimbabwe, tobacco is part of the journey. So if we define this as part of our journey, then we have to make the case. And we've got to call on our ancestors and the strength and the wisdom they have to guide us and ask the plant itself, how does it want to be used? Because that's also something that we've forgotten in the whole debate, that this plant itself doesn't even need us to fight for it because it's way above this game. This is one of the greatest and intelligent female spirits that we have around us. But we have never honored that feminine energy in the way that it has to be honored. So I hear all the persecution of, brethren, especially when in Ghana, especially in West Africa, when people see you in dreadlocks, it seems like there's some madness within the security system. Here it's celebrated to wear dread. In Southern Africa, actually in saloons, this is one of the biggest things that fetch money. In East Africa, there are communities for whom, this is part of their journey, that they don't have to cut their hair. We don't all have to have, nicely shaved hair and all of that. So, but these are just sidelines of the issue. The main core is what we want to do with this plan, and how do we want her to help us in our journey to understand. So thank you very much. I think I'll end here and then others can come in. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to thank you. I do want to thank you, Prof. Imhotep, because you really touched on the things that we need to pay attention to, like especially when you say, ask the plant, make we ask the plant what it want, make we do, instead of imposing what we think safe or be, But you said a whole lot of things where it makes me even more eager to hear you present on this, in the next session. Yeah, I really appreciate what you're saying. You're talking about what the internal, looking at us, looking at ourselves, going inside ourselves to think about this whole situation, the inner searching. So, thank you. I really want to thank you again, as always.
and sorry if I may add, if nobody is coming in, the other thing, and this came to me a long time ago, that the plant itself is on its way of liberation anyway. So of course we have to do our part on the outer world, but the plant itself, bear in mind that it was never ever possible to keep this, away from people in the first place. In India, for instance, they try to ban all the cannabis farm. All that you succeed in doing is you have to waste your public resources and money. It's not going to go away. And back here, the journey of the plant, especially in this moment of our evolution on this planet, is that it must come back on the tables, on the platforms, and back in the public circles. And in fact, it will be even more difficult for those who are making the laws themselves to turn, away from it. In South Africa, actually, what is not talked about really is that part of the one who actually tabled the medical marijuana bill was an MP, the Inkatha Freedom Party MP, called Oriana Ambrosini. And this guy himself had been terminally ill for a long time. That's on lung cancer. One of the things that helped him to, live with the after effects of chemotherapy was just cannabis oil, which he inserted, rectally. And that's how he was able to manage the pain arising from chemotherapy. And the debate split, so he had to table that in Parliament. Very soon, across the world, many people will begin to see that the Schedule 1, description of this having no medical basis and all of that, it's, junk science that has to be thrown off. And that has to come through some real-time empirical research that is showing how this has helped in several cases, like the pain medications, the pharmaceutical system is trying to push on and on without any, sight of it getting the people the kind of help that they need. So I think with this, the plant itself is easing gradually. Remember, this also has to happen within a time frame. And we went into this darkness and we have been in it for quite a long time. But we've also forgotten that it was prophesied long time ago that this is the time we need to open our eyes and see. And the same tools that we have been given to use to open our eyes, we have not used them in the right way. So back in the days, as I've been told, if you have to actually get in touch with, Ganja, it has to be prayerful, or that kind of respectful religious ceremony around it. And you have the intention of what you want to do. And the moment that spark comes in, the connection establishes. And gosh, if your receptors are open to all the different, vistas of reality that is around us, you can then tune yourself directly into what you want to create. And that's what I think this is one of the powerful tools that a Rastafari community have. But unfortunately, the benefits and advantages that comes with it has not been utilized to the greatest advantage. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Prof.
Please, do we have any more questions, comments, contributions to add?
Yes, yes,
Ringo?
yeah.
So,
Please,
Ringo, you want to come in?
yes, please.
Okay, so do that.
Please, what I would like to say that after this meeting, there should be something practical. As my brother said, Mr. Noche, says that we should collaborate or link up alliance or something like that. We should try and get the interest and try and do something from even Kirk's knows that we got to a level. They said we should what? Get people who are interested. We'll be taken to. I was walking about ghettos, trying for people to sign. I got people. I gave it to cakes. I didn't know where it got to. So let's try and put this thing into practice and let this happen. Give thanks.
Sorry, give thanks. Yes, I also have an input. I think we've learned a lot from Prof. Motel. It seems there's a prophecy that most of us don't know about yet. And it's exciting to hear that Ganja will be free at all costs. But like you said, we have to do our part. And I think you mentioned South Africa, they were able to justify it's unconstitutional in the first place to criminalize hemp. And so I'm thinking, yes, if Ghana can get to that stage, yeah, it will really feel good for I to feel free to explore cannabis in its fullness. And so the concern is, how do we get to that stage, bearing in mind they claim the law on or the war on drug has been a war on people. It has destroyed students, it has destroyed families, separated husbands from wives, fathers from children, and all that. And as we speak, a lot of brothers are still in jail for cannabis use, for which I think it is not right. And so, as a country or as an advocacy group, where do we go there from here? How do we reach a level where we can make our government appreciate the unconstitutionality of that particular law, that cannabis should be prohibited? And that I think there was an Ashesi University student report on cannabis use, and they claimed among the 5,000 arrests made in 2014, about 3,500 of them were students. That is the tertiary and second cycle institution. So the law is really harming the youth, especially because if you look at the student age group, it's mostly youthful, and so it looks like there is the law criminalizes is like mentally the youth have to, people who are not doing anything wrong mentally have to create that perception that they are criminals, and they have to face a lot. I've experienced a lot of incidences where students have to part with their school fees, their mobile phones, anything possible, just to negotiate for their freedom. And I think it is a stage that Ghana should go beyond that. And so, how do we position ourselves as a country, as an advocacy group, to reach there? I think this is something boggling my mind.
Yeah, I think it's for the group, the collective, to decide on how to move forward. But with what we've picked up today, especially from Professor Imhotep, I think that the whole thing about self-work, going inside, thinking about it in a way that's not just what we're used to talking about, like trying to justify on the basis of, yeah, this is, recreational, whatever concept, but going inside. I love the part he says, let the plants speak to us, we for do that, and then we for use that to guide us, among ourselves, formulate the way we want to move forward. But already we have a lot of things ready to work for us. I think someone wants to speak too, so make it add in thing.
Yes, please, you can ask. I think Love Mark. Yeah, Ray, please ask your question or make your contribution.
Okay, please, can you hear me?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Yeah, good evening. Please, I've been following this program for some time now, listening to all that they are saying. Yeah, for the alliance position per se like this, I hear one of our people saying that students are being found guilty and other stuffs. I think maybe when putting up the rights in our constitution, Ghana has a term that we know as freedom and freedom of speech, freedom of everything. But sometimes we're going to legalize certain things shouldn't go to the average Ghanaian man, because at the end of the day, Ghanaians, we are in such a way that even if you give us the little opportunity, instead of us using it meaningfully or something better should come out from it, we make things out of it that at the end of it, we rather at the bench looking so stupid to the other countries or the other world, because at the end of the day, other worlds are doing it so meaningfully by exporting this cannabis and other stuff to the big pharmaceutical companies. Because for instance, like this, if you assume a cancer patient, because I've done a lot of research about this cannabis health adequate side, because it cures epilepsy, cancer, a lot of things, these migraine issues, you feeling nausea and other stuff. It does a lot of sicknesses. But the way the youth are using it out there, this is the major problem. I know big men that do smoke, but at the end of the day, after work, they do smoke to relax their mind or to take tension off. But these students, you ask them to go to school to study. At the end of the day, you see them at the ghetto. Some of them are not even working. Where do they get money from before buying all those stuffs? At the end of the day, they are found stealing in the community. So these are some of the things that people are looking at, and that they are trying to say that no, it's not good, it's not that. But at the end of the day, we're looking at the money aspect to the profit that it will bring to our country, Ghana, or other country, because we have vast acres of lands and things people are using for galamsey, which is not supposed to be. At the end of the day, these galamsey pits and other stuffs are causing a lot of health dangerous or health hazard to people out there. But I believe we go into this cannabis business or hemp business, producing vast acres of land. At the end of the day, government come into terms and conditions with our alliance of people that are into this big business. And we know that this is our top officials that are in charge of all these things. I think it will rather even help, but I think we should just see the way we put it forward to look so meaningful, soundly into our constitution and to the average Ghanaian man, that it is not everybody coming on board to do such a thing. But the thing is, if you open the floor right now that okay, cannabis is being legalized, a layman, excuse me to say, a layman which is not even having the idea about what cannabis is supposed to be or what is the use of cannabis, not only for smoking aspect, you see the way they will start misusing it. Just like the way people have been given the little opportunity that, oh, this galamsey is over there, pits over there, make good use of it. And now the cocoa farms and other vegetations that we have in Ghana as our tourist sites too are no more, are being messed up. So I think maybe our alliance should just sit down, see how best they can put this into proper constitution before bringing it out, so that a layman will not just go and misuse the constitution or misuse the term, because they say they've legalized it. So anything at all, people coming on board doing anything at all. Because once we are talking, those big top officials, the MPs or whosoever they call themselves, they'll be in the position and now use a layman to work for them on their farm. Even paying that layman is going to be a problem. And they are going to abuse that person. But I believe when this constitution is out and terms and measures are out, you've employed a layman. We are talking about 24-hour economy or political issues that will employ jobs for the youth. Let's leave our political parties aside. I think we'll have jobs to do. The youth will have jobs to do. We'll also be happy. And we know that when we are in, these are the rules governing us. We will not misbehave. We will not mess up. I know ladies that smoke, but they behave. I know people that smoke, but they behave. Now, if you go to most of our rehabilitation centers, it is not cannabis that are making the people mad. Because I heard one of the gentlemen saying that some of the people are going mad on the street, leaving their husband. Some of them are ending up taking other drugs that are not cannabis or hemp. Because at the end of the day, the last time making research in some of the ghettos, I asked them, they say they are calling something, they say they take something in the form of cocaine. When you look at the chemical, it is not cocaine. It is a different thing altogether that they are trying to consume. At the end of the day, because cannabis has been in the system known as a bad substance, so people will put it at the bench of cannabis, whereby the youth are outside, they're doing a whole lot of things. People go ahead smoking super glue and other dangerous chemicals. By the end of the day, when you ask them, when you take them to the rehabilitation centers, the first thing the person should put on paper is they are taking weed, they are taking this. It's never nice. I think we should have proper measures. So that at the end of the day, those are the top officials, and those going to guide us in this alliance. They'll also be happy doing their job, and we too going to be happy to deliver a good job out there. Please, thank you very much.
Yeah, I wanted to add to where our sister left off, and that goes directly to the question Ras Kofi Asante was asking. What do we do and how do we move the discussion and the reasoning forward? And once again, thanks to Ras Kwesi Anochi for bringing this conversation up, because it's not just about reasoning, but reasoning to the point where we can take action and use the knowledge that we have collected and shared in this reasoning to take real steps. Yes, the plant may fight its own fight, but we still need to do something in our own way to take the fight forward. And I think as I begin, I always say that knowledge is very, very important. It's the most powerful tool that we need to get to. I shared quite a number of papers on the research that we have done on, the economics and the other aspects and commercial and industrial aspects of the plant. And we've also touched on a few areas in terms of the legalization wave across the continent. Now, we live in a system that is mainly driven by material concerns, so we cannot take ourselves out of that. So we have to face the reality. It's an economic war right now, because if you look at even our money system, it's the cannabis that is driving this money system, almost from all over, from developed to developing countries. And it's so interesting to note that where we are located, it's an entry port for transporting all kinds of things between East and West, North and South. So we are strategically positioned. And it's not surprising that we are so asleep, because it has to be the case for the world that we live in to take place. So the beginning point is reasoning like this. This is the first step. And we have started that already. It's to reason. And let's continue the conversation. Let's read the literature. Let's find out what others have found out. And let's see where else can we extend this debate. And then we have to have very well-reasoned and researched documents that present the case. Like our sister just said, many times when somebody's mind fucked up, they just straight away, it has to be cannabis. But then there are so many other ways. We have seen the research where it hasn't got any of this at all. But at the same time, we must not ignore the fact that people who have unstable minds and are not well connected, when they approach this and they open receptors through the medium of the plant, a lot of things get fucked up in real time. So for most people, they just don't feel like working anymore. They don't want to participate. You want to use it as an escape route out of this reality. It's not going to happen. Those are some of the conversations that within our own community we can begin to address. And when our community gets our act together, we can then take this to the next step, which is the larger community. And our point should be that this is our route to the divine. And for that matter, nobody can say, don't use it in this way or in that way. But for that to happen, we have to do the inner work first, the community here. But beyond that, I think the legal side of the work is also very important. Here in South Africa, when it started, it was a challenge to the constitutional court rule. The police just went and raided somebody and his wife in the comfort of their home, doing whatever they want to do with whatever they want to experiment with. And they challenged it. And when they challenged it, they challenged it on the basis of science and on the basis of law. And in both counts, the Constitutional Court could not stand the debate. So the system has to unravel. So we cannot go there with emotions, trying to fight that with emotions, because that's how the system is crafted. It's crafted to fight on reaction. You have to go there with knowledge. And so that is the beginning point. Are they legal people here who understand the legalities of the law and can take up arguments on the law courts, on the platforms? That is where we have to begin to. And those people can then prepare transcripts on the basis of some of the research that we have come in the scientific rooms. We have shown this. There are papers that are saying among all the most poisonous and addictive substances, this is not one of them. We've got to bring all of that science up. And when this science mixed with the legal system comes on board, it is almost impossible to defeat it. And then that is the spiritual war that is at the background, back the physical part of the movement. So I think from here, we need to begin to get together and assemble some of the knowledge that is already out there and see what else we can add to it. And then probably have a blueprint in a paper and some steps as to what we can do going forward from here. Give thanks.
Thank you, Prof. And for every sister who just spoke, and Ras Kofi, yeah, I think we've got some roadmap already, sort of a roadmap, right? And I think when we go back to the point about what the sister was concerned about and what Prof. Imhotep was talking about is how people could use it in ways that you can't defend, and how it could be dangerous for certain people to use it. And we should understand that there's a common understanding that for some people it's like anything goes with it, right? It's recreational, But if we can make this meaning, I'm going back to Prof. Imhotep a lot because I mean I don't want to be like I'm always mentioning his name, but that's what we're getting from where he stands. He's done the work and he's sharing. Going into ourselves, working this inner searching thing, inner reading of who we are, what things mean. We have to actualize it. And then that be the kind of knowledge we produce to the way we live, not just talking, right? And all those things can inform the way people respond to the herb. Maybe we won't see that today, but when they consistently see another meaning to the herb, those who thought it's just for fun or something like that would adjust their thinking, because I think we're all connected, in one way or another. And there's something that runs through all of us, that when it's triggered, I'm not saying everyone will respond the same way, but when it's triggered and it's constantly triggered and we're constantly engaging with it, it becomes our normal, So as the first step, part of the first step is, like what he said about working on ourselves and coming up, like living with the herb in, to for lack of a better term, in another way, in the way that the herb wants us to live with, and in that way, also I want to tie it to the idea of like saying, Rasta people, yeah, we are the exclusive ones, because from what we've heard, there are other people who are looking at the herb in a higher way too. Maybe they are not that vocal, right? These are things we have to take into consideration when we're speaking about these things, when we're doing these things, So, yeah, that's my bit. I think that inner part, understanding what the herb is and using it to guide us forward, because we don't want to be saying one thing and then we don't have a grasp on what we're doing or what the thing we're defending stands for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, Jah beloved.
Yes, I give thanks. So, quick question, and I think this question is for both Prof and Rasquisi, because I'm listening and I'm hearing we need the knowledge to present a case, and I'm listening to Rasquisi and I'm hearing we don't even have to acknowledge those things that are supposed to be the conventions. right? So how do we find a balance between these two solid messages? And I find myself caught in between the two because, yes, on one hand, I feel like we need a new world order, in quotes, that defines everything that we have to deal with, including especially trade terms, right? Because I think that's going to reset a lot of things. But currently, as we speak, we still have to approach a certain system, which is kind of set in its ways, which we have to confront. We have to confront that system, that shit system, according to Prof, the way I understand it, and I believe the way it should be, with a grasp on the knowledge of what we are dealing with, right? And then go with an attitude to go and win, but not to go and win on the basis of what they think. But at the same time, what am I saying? We have to confront that system. So I'm trying to find how we can find a balance between these two ideas.
Yeah.
Let's ignore the system. Let's confront the system with knowledge. Give thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that is so sweet, my brother. And Ras Kwesi, let me go first, and then you come in. But what he says really hits at the core of what we are saying. Both what Ras Kwesi is saying and what I'm saying are actually not different. I wholly believe in what he says at the beginning, that we have to actually not go with the system's rules and obligations. It's laws, it's economics, it's politics, etc., etc. I am a passionate believer in this thing. But you do that with knowledge, meaning you have to transcend those rules. If you are playing at the level of those rules and you are saying that you don't obey them, you are in trouble, my brother. And that is where we agree on this, because that's why I believe that this is an inner work. Because there are so many places when you step out as the real Rasta that you are. The model that we have in this community is Haile Selassie. You can't see such a majesty, a king. You take your kingly garment, and that garment is an inner garment. The outer part of it may be there. So that is why I still go back to the knowledge. Those rules are there. They are there for the sheep and the chicken to obey. If you're an eagle and you're a wolf, you have to operate by different rules altogether. And I think this is where, the reconciliation is there. I like your question because it really hits at the core of this. If we will not go by these rules, then we have to live by higher rules. Anytime you put yourself on rules that are higher than the lower ones, the higher rule will always transcend. And it will. So when the debate comes and we are arguing on logic, on principle, on ideas, on deep insight, on realizations, and on ability to go to other realms, this is where this tool that we are talking about today becomes a useful tool. So within this community, we ourselves are well organized. And bear in mind, we are very educated people here. You have read the books. You have gone into the details of the mysteries. You have examined your own weaknesses and what they may potentially use against you. And then you come up with a well-rehearsed and well-planned and executable strategy. There's no way. And that's why I keep saying that this is where the plant begins to become a tool that will help us and guide us and direct us in all the ways. By the way, we are just talking about one plant, but its combination, in medicine, they talk about combination therapy and all of that. Its combination with other kinds of plant will actually yield a lethal weapon in the hands of anyone that has it. Give thanks. Ras Kwesi, you can take over and then
Prof, when
respond
you talk finish, man don't want talk. Oh, true. I go tell you that. You said it. Basically what I was talking about was just like an attitude towards what exists. And Prof is giving us what to work with. In terms of moving forward, and I'm just what he said. I think the two work together. But because I said let's turn our backs on their world of knowledge, I am way more interested in what Prof. Imatep is saying. You know, just one thing that clicked was, you know, in Abyssinia, before the white people came and tried to talk about all this thing, they found out that traditionally they had a name for ganja, which was the herb of prophecy. And some people call it the thief catcher, right? If someone uses the herb, they can see things that, you know, we don't normally see, and they can tell who did the wrong. And they were able to prophesy and things like that. So what he's saying is very true. And to acknowledge that as what it is, you know, I can't wait to hear what Prof. Imatep has to say about the herb, you know. I mean, his next presentation, what the herb is. You know, our sisters knew these things. And we all get us in the creative arts. You know, Jah Beloved, you're an artist. You know, I mean, you create sound. You know what herb does. You know, things that you may not necessarily be able to explain in regular language, how a song comes about, right? Those who don't create music or art, even decisions we come up with, intuitions that come through, things that happen when the herb interacts with the physical body. So at this point, I think if you ask me, I'll say, let's listen to what Prof. Imatep is saying with the attitude of we're turning our backs on this way of looking at understanding of the world and all that, and move forward with this, who we really are. That's what I'm hearing. If we put the two together, and that's how I understand what both of us are talking about. Let's bring out who we really are, you know, and armed with the knowledge. And knowledge is not quantifiable, right? Sometimes it's easy to say, "Oh, I've read 1,000 books and that's it," but it's the quality of it, and it's a constant engagement with knowledge, you know. So yes, I just want to thank you for the question to Jah Beloved. I want to think of it like the two are working together. What I'm emphasizing right now is turning our backs on these logics or the whole way of understanding things, and then let's use this, what we're getting from Prof. Imatep, in terms of, you know, how to really engage with ourselves. That's what it comes down to, and existence. That's what we're about.
We give thanks and we appreciate all the information, the knowledge, the wisdom shared. And like you've mentioned, Prof. Imotep will be leading the next presentation. And so the conversation will continue in our next reasoning, and I'm sure it's going to get much deeper. I want to ask if there is any comment, question at this point in time. We have exceeded the 9 o'clock time schedule for the reasoning, and so we would like to take some final comments, and then we take closing remarks from the presenter. And so at this stage, please, is there any comments, questions that would like to make? NDC Rasta Koko, son of man, if you are here, if there is anything, Ajite, Ashia, if there is anything anybody would like to add at this point. If Prof. Imotep has anything to add before the closing remarks to at this stage, we want to invite.
Give thanks. Not much from me again.
Give thanks, Prof. If there are no other comments, Jah Beloved, if there are no other comments, I'll ask Ras, Seven Fireside, to give us his closing remarks. Give thanks.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody, everyone we speak, everyone present, for making this reasoning happen. I really appreciate the ideas, the questions, the statements shared. And I think, like we all know, we're taking this thing so that we go live a certain way, so we go move forward a certain way. So we take these things seriously in terms of building, not just acquiring knowledge, but to build, to work together, and to move forward, you know. So again, I want to thank everyone that's spoken, you know. Can go down the list, you know, all the questions on the comments, remarks, everything. And then, of course, the insights where we get. So yeah, give thanks. And like you say, the next one will be a continuation. I know Prof. Amateur will give us a deeper dive into things. And this one was basically to say, hey, there's another way to look at this whole thing. Prof. Amateur has already indicated to us that, yes, there are all these possibilities. And I think we should be very interested in picking these things up because we need to move forward. We shouldn't just stop here and say, hey, we don't understand why things are like this. All right. Thank you.